Welcome to Beyond Rockets. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Clark Dunn and I'm your host. Get ready to enjoy some awesome conversations from Huntsville locals about cool work they're doing right here in the Rocket City. You can connect with us on social media at Beyond Rockets, and if you're interested in doing a podcast yourself, I'd love to hear from you. You can visit my website, beyondrockets.com today, or connect with me on LinkedIn at Clark Dunn. Sit back and enjoy this episode of Beyond Rockets.
Everything I liked except the way she talked to me every day.
This episode is sponsored by Yellowhammer Brewing. Yellowhammer is a local craft brewery serving Huntsville for the past 14 years. They are known for their premium craft beers like their T-Minus and Rebellion, but what you might not know is they also offer spirits, wine, seltzers, and non-alcoholic drinks. Next time you stop by their location, try one of their seasonal cocktails made with the Gemini Bourbon or the Yellowhammer Vodka, or try this year's big hit Pineapple Punch Seltzer. You can find out more information about Yellowhammer Brewery by visiting their website, yellowhammerbrewery.com, or visiting their tap room located at Campus 805.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for having us.
So would you like to introduce yourself and we'll get started there?
Sure. I'm Cody Morgan with Octo Hospitality, Blue Oak, the camp.
And I'm Jamie Muñoz. Same, Octo Hospitality, Blue Oak Barbecue, the camp, everything MidCity right now.
Awesome. Yeah. So both of y'all are originally from New Orleans area. Talk a little bit about growing up in New Orleans. Were you always in the restaurant industry? Kind of what was your background prior to then moving here to Huntsville and starting Octo Hospitality?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in New Orleans. Started in the restaurant business very, very young. It was my first job. So started in that bar backing, going through the business. Went through the bar scene of Bourbon Street and everything else for a long time. So I've been in it for a while. Was blessed to work with some really incredible people. I got to run the original Roost Chris Steakhouse in New Orleans, Ruth Fertel and that group. And then kind of moved on from there over to Dickie Brennan's. And that family, the Brennan family in New Orleans, is just a staple for the last 100 years. So it's been pretty amazing to learn from some incredible people. And then we kind of started venturing out on our own, working with some other groups, doing some Caribbean work and all over the, waters per se, but had a lot of fun with that. And then kind of started Octo Hospitality about 5-6 years ago. And one of the projects we were working on was here in MidCity and just fell in love with it and now here full time.
Yeah. So Cody, have you always been in the restaurant industry too? Is it something that you started off as like your first job at 16 and then you've just kind of grown into it? Or is it something that you started later in life?
Yeah, actually, I mean, similar kind of story, not as fancy restaurants as Jamie over here, but I think one of my first jobs, I was about 15, 16 years old, right when I got a car and had to pay for gas. And I worked at a little hamburger joint called Lee's Hamburgers in New Orleans, along with Applebee's and coffee shops and everything. And then eventually went to the University of New Orleans and did the hospitality program. And then really just kept in the business and worked on Magazine Street for a long time with a group called Rum House. It was a great Caribbean restaurant that's still open and very much thriving today. Just turned 15.
Wow.
So yeah, just kind of like Jamie, just got to work and learn from some really amazing people in New Orleans. And, I think just kind of in our blood a little bit, the hospitality line, once you get an itch for it, it's probably a little harder than most industries to get out of.
Yeah. I worked in the restaurant industry a couple times throughout college as like I worked at a country club. So it's a little different, but still kind of on that, bar back sort of role, working catered events, weddings, stuff like that. Expo was kind of my big role. So I loved that control and that, and it was such an interesting experience because it's one of those, most people don't get to experience that role, or even a lot of people don't even get into the restaurant industry even as their first job there. Maybe their first job's not till they're in college and they're an intern somewhere. But I think that restaurant industry kind of shapes, because there's so much you can learn from that hospitality side of it that can be that can apply to so many different areas of your life. And so the connection with Huntsville, talk a little bit about how Huntsville kind of came on the market and how y'all then took up your life in New Orleans and brought it here to Huntsville and kind of grew the camp and all of that.
Yeah. So, it was a very kind of random occurrence. Like Jamie said, we've both worked in the restaurant industry for a lot of other people, a lot of other groups. And I think we just kind of found it time where we wanted to start doing it for ourselves. You grind really hard for other people sometimes. And I think it was just our time to start our own business. So we had a great architect that we worked with actually in Aruba. He didn't live in Aruba, worked in the States, but he worked on a project with us in Aruba and was just ended up being a great friend and really a big motivator to us to go out and do it on our own. You know, he really was kind of the voice behind us, pushing us to say, you know, just go, just do it. You know, I'll help you meet some people or whatever it is. And long story short, told us to come to Huntsville, and there was a gentleman here we needed to meet and talk to who, you know, could just use a little support on the hospitality end in Huntsville, and that was Max with our CP. And we, you know, called Nadia a million times to try and get a meeting with him, and finally did. We were in, you know, about an hour outside of Huntsville, and we said, hey, we're going to be in town, you know, we'd love to meet. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. We saw the camp the first day we were here, and really just fell in love with its charm and its potential. Heard a lot about what it was doing, you know, then, but really I think our minds started to race of
What
the
can it
things
do
it
today?
could do. Yeah. You know, and it's great. You know, I get the chills right now thinking about it because it's really, I mean, the way just the camp alone has transformed in the last 5 years, but, you know, even more so just MidCity. I mean, you know, we were here again in 2019 before COVID. So what MidCity is today alone is just, you know, such a transformation from what it was when we came. And really, you know, just is another reason why we are so happy to be here, happy to be a part of the project. And then we've fully moved here over the last, I think, like three years. We've been here permanently.
Wow.
So
And
started on a consulting kind of basis, and then
just trying to see if you like the city, if you like what's going on. But did you know anything about it? Either one of you know anything about Huntsville prior to maybe that first visit, prior to coming here for the first time? Have you ever been here, knew anything? Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
Literally nothing.
So we're-
I think it was funny because I remember calling Cody. I'm like, hey, I need you to come meet me out in Huntsville. She's like, where and why?
Yeah.
You know, but getting here, there's a charm about it. There really is. And something that we really fell in love with was the opportunity to make a difference. You know, we can open great restaurants all around the country, you know, in New Orleans, did some amazing things there. But here, there's potential. You know, there's so many great people, so many things that are an opportunity, like the food industry. More importantly, even the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
You know, to teach and show people that, hey, we're here for you, to take care of you. And I don't think that was just a norm. You know, you have great people here, but on the industry side, on the restaurant and food and entertainment side, it wasn't the number one priority, you know, and I think it's starting to really come around.
Yeah.
You got a lot of great groups. I think Huntsville itself got such an influx of chain restaurants because it fit the model, right?
Everyone
And at
traveled
the
here
income
for work,
you had,
and so
travel, you had all of these things. So it fit the model really well. So it was an easy box check for all these chains, and that's what we got flooded out with. What our goal and hope for the city to continue the growth is to bring in just some great people who care about their food more than just executing an item. You know what I mean? We call it the gumbo effect. I can give you all the ingredients in the world, but until you put your love into it, it's not going to taste right.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about that initial, you know, coming here, you finally get here, you start running the camp. Talk about some of those events that you did early on, and kind of what was the response you got from the community at the time? Because like we talked about, I mean, the camp itself's grown like crazy in the last few years.
Yeah.
MidCity looks completely different than what it looked like when you first got here. So I presume that the experience in the camp and the events that y'all do has also grown with that. Talk a little bit about that first event and kind of what was your feedback you got from the community?
Yeah, I think, you know, it was funny. I mean, that was really the first event, you know, and before we really took on the camp as a whole, like operations, we were consulting on this one event, which was just what was going to be the one Mardi Gras Day celebration in 2020, I guess. And, you know, it's planning an event in a city you've never been, you know, a part of. So it was, you know, probably a little scary on our end. You know, we didn't want to go too small, but we didn't want to go too big.
Yeah.
You know, we knew we wanted crawfish in from New Orleans. We knew we wanted, a jambalaya company there making, jambalaya. So we wanted it to be very, very authentic. And I will never forget. I mean, I think we opened at 11 o'clock in the morning, and by noon, it was just absolutely bonkers. I mean, I've never seen an event have such a strong start. The weather was beautiful, which helped, and it was just amazing. The day started with St. Bartley's Choir, and it was just, again, my goosebumps. But it was just like such a beautiful day. So many walks of life, people from the Huntsville community. I mean, just families, young, old, people from every background, was just, amazing to see. And we had just some amazing bands. And I think that for us was really, just looking around going like, oh, okay, like Huntsville wants stuff like this. They need it. Yeah, 100%. So I think that for us was really just like the start of, knowing how we can throw these events, what people want. And that was a really, really special event to us still today. I think it just like started the little sparkle in our eye about it. Yeah. And now today, I mean, we're running a Mardi Gras celebration almost 5 weeks long at the camp, and people are still coming out strong every weekend for it. So
yeah, it's incredible just to see the camp's events develop over the years, because it seems like every year y'all outdo yourself from the year prior, and you're always trying to figure out new and unique ways to make something like that happen. Like you said, extending Mardi Gras, so it's not just a 1-day thing; it's a whole month-long event.
Yeah,
and so it's incredible just to see that. Talk a little bit about some of the other ways in which you've integrated some of your New Orleans flavors into the work you do here in Huntsville, beyond just the Mardi Gras event, but with some of the other things that y'all have done at the camp, and even kind of transitioning into Blue Oak Barbecue.
We can start with the next event coming up, Crawfish Fest.
Mm.
We started that 4 years ago.
This will be our fifth
year. And we were like, talking to Max and everything, like, we got to get some crawfish out here. We need some food. And he always referenced a big crawfish event they used to have in Birmingham that they don't do anymore. I'm like, well, let's get it started. So we started, I think, with about 2,000 pounds coming through and cooking that, and learned real quickly that Huntsville was ready for crawfish.
Huntsville needed more than 2,000 pounds.
So we've kind of grown the event with some incredible bands coming through. We've kind of bounced around because we were growing so much. And last year, I think we got close to 10,000 pounds. So things are changing around here. So you have that event coming up here on the 19th that we're excited. We're going to put it back over at the camp. But, as far as event-wise, we just try to have fun. I guess if there's a couple of things you miss from New Orleans, it's the constant activities that are always out. 51 weeks out of the year, there's something going on in New Orleans. And we're not trying to do that, but we are trying to create some patterns and create some activities that people are going to enjoy for a long, long time. We're fortunate enough, WhistleStop BBQ Fest started, 20 some odd years ago, and has been a staple here. And they were trying to go through a transition of where they were going to be, what they were going to do. And they, fortunately, we kind of, speaking back and forth, were able to help them and come on board. So we're doing that festival now, the last 2 years, and coming up on our third year with WhistleStop as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, just to think, because now Crawfish Fest is one of the biggest events y'all do at the camp in general, like it is now. And as the MidCity has grown, like you said, you've had to pivot the locations a little bit, because the barren grass field is no longer barren. There's a building, there's a apartment complex, there's a co-working space, there's a massage place, there's so many things happening. You've done a lot of different events. Is there an event that you did that you thought was going to do really well and maybe just didn't perform to your level of expectation, that maybe you don't no longer do, or that maybe you've kind of redesigned to make it more successful here in Huntsville?
Look, the camp, especially, we're an outdoor venue, so we always battle weather. Mardi Gras is actually one of the events that we did pivot, specifically, not because it maybe didn't do well. It was a great event, but Mardi Gras, the date changes every year. So where one year it might be February 14th and it's in the beginning of February, and this past year it was March 4th. So the years when it's very early February, it's a lot more difficult to bring people out in the 20-degree weather. So that's really a big part of why we started to extend it over the couple of weeks so that we have the ability to still have enough time where people can come out. And if it's 1 or 2 days where it's freezing and they can't come out, okay, well, I can still come out next weekend. So definitely that one looks a lot different today than it did when we started too. You know, and wiffle ball, it's funny you talk about, you know, the pivot. Blue Oak today is on the location of the first wiffle ball classic, you know, tournament that we did. So we have our big wiffle ball sign up in Blue Oak, you know, referencing that event was there on that piece of property.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about Blue Oak. So your
Another
connection with Blue Oak came, I mean, you knew the owners of the Blue Oak, the original in New Orleans, from going to school with them. Talk a little bit about you know, seeing Blue Oak grow in New Orleans and then thinking, hey, maybe this, as you got here to Huntsville, thinking, hey, we really need Blue Oak here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ronnie and Phil are the two founders of Blue Oak. They started Blue Oak right out of college. You know, they kind of moved to Vail, to Colorado to go, you know, just like live their life and be like college kids and no responsibility. And they started working at a barbecue place there and really just fell in love with the craft of barbecue. And I think the restaurant business too. Neither one of them were like fully in the business, you know, before moving to Colorado. So, you know, I think they just really fell in love with it. And, you know, what was kind of cool is they just kind of went and were thinking that they were going to open a franchise in New Orleans of the place they had worked at. And then that kind of fell through. So they said, hey, we're going to, you know, just go buy a smoker and, you know, barbecue for people's like parties and stuff. Yeah. So they kind of did that. And then that transformed into them doing a pop-up at a bar called Grits in New Orleans, which if anyone knows Grits in New Orleans, you're not really going there until after you've already been out already. So their busiest hours, I think, were from like 2 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Okay.
So really, you know, they just kind of did a lot of grinding with Blue Oak in the beginning. And I think that was really crucial to their success when they did open a brick and mortar. You know, they had a great following of people who, you know, knew them either from Grits or from Chihuahua, a music venue they were in. So they had this great, strong base when they opened. And really, you know, since then, they have just had a cult-like following. Yeah. You know, we have a great social media. You know, Ronnie and Phil especially, you know, are very not ashamed to get on there and be silly and playful, and have really ingrained themselves in the barbecue community. So, you know, it's been really cool to see them start. And Ronnie and Phil are two of my best friends from the 3rd grade. Wow. We all went to grammar school together and really have all just kind of been lifelong friends. You know, all of our families know each other. We've, you know, been through life together. Yeah. So really, you know, I think when we started coming to Huntsville and just seeing the need for not chains, but, you know, unique original concepts that were a little different from the norm. And of course, you know, barbecue is barbecue, but if you've ever been in Blue Oak, you know that our menu is a little different than just your everyday.
All your specials you do too. I think that's what's unique is like every day, maybe every day I see a story of what specials you have. Yeah. And even if I have lunch plans already, I'm like, maybe I should just move them to Blue Oak. Yeah. Because that looks really good. And so it is such a unique thing. Was it a tough sell for them to think, hey, you should come to Huntsville?
100%.
Okay.
100%. You know, look, Blue Oak had a very strong opening in New Orleans. You know, we're not the first people to go to Blue Oak and say, hey, we want a Blue Oak in, you know, whatever city. So, you know, Ronnie went to school in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and so he'd been getting a ton of people to try and go, you know, there. Phil went to LSU and Baton Rouge, tons of people trying to go to Baton Rouge or across the lake in New Orleans. So, you know, yeah, I think it's a hard thing to think about growing your business without having more like people to help operate it too. So I'm fortunate that I think Ronnie and Phil were more trusting of myself and Jamie, you know, knowing the business to say, okay, we'll think about this a little bit more. So.
Yeah. And so that process, the build out process took a little bit. in MidCity. Talk a little bit about kind of designing, because like the space you are, like you said, it was barren, so you could kind of design and create the space that you wanted, kind of thinking not only what is it going to be useful for today, but what is it going to be useful for in 5, 6, 7 years. And so talk a little bit about the design and kind of how that the integration, I think, which is really cool. I think MidCity does it really well, of the outside with the inside. Talk a little bit about that and kind of how that has, especially now as we're getting into the spring time frame, has really probably increased the popularity of Blue Oak in the afternoons, after work, for lunch, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I think that was the hard trick, is kind of, we understood what Blue Oak was in New Orleans, right? You go there anytime at between 11 and 9 o'clock, there's probably 20, 30 people standing in line outside to get in, small space. So we knew we had to expand. We knew we wanted to grow, but we also knew we were a brand new baby coming to a new city, right? So we didn't want to get crazy, but we had to plan for the future. And I think that's what you see that building today, is planned for the future. Now, the future hits you smack dab in the mouth when there's a great concert at the Orion and it's standing room only in Blue Oak.
100%.
It's amazing. But I think what we wanted to create was some great outdoor space, which I think we did. We have the 2 garage doors, one under the covered patio, one under the front side on MidCity Drive. And it just, as you say, the weather starts hitting like this, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
It feels great walking up, and there's, everybody sitting in the window on the outside, just enjoying the weather and great food. They got all the TVs in the world that we have, watching the games. March Madness was fun over there. We've had a lot of good community stuff with UAH, their basketball team, and everything that we're doing with that school. And it's just been fun. It's great having people living in MidCity, that we become their staple.
Yeah.
They're going to come
it's
over.
their neighborhood bar. I mean, like every good TV show series has a neighborhood bar.
Right.
Everyone. And so that's what I think it is such a unique thing. And it's like, the Metronome is 96% full,
right?
Maybe 98% occupied, whatever it might be. And then you have the Wellery getting built soon and opening up this year. Antler House, Encore, like you're getting to this point that people I talk about it a lot, is just not having to drive. They can park their car, they work from home, they work in a co-working space, they maybe even ride their bike to Research Park to go to work. And then they just come home and they get to walk over to Blue Oak and have a drink, and they get to walk over and watch March Madness. And I like that dynamic. I would assume has not only affected Blue Oak's success over the last year or two, but also Octo Hospitality and the events at the camp. How do you kind of balance the two? Because there's a lot that the camp does. There's a lot that you do with Octo Hospitality in that realm. Blue Oak is, fresh in Huntsville. I mean, how long have y'all been?
We're about to hit 1 year.
About to hit 1 year. Okay, so it's 1 year old. You've kind of cultivated it. You're seeing the kind of the fruits of the labor now as more and more people are coming to MidCity. How do you balance the two, Octo Hospitality and Blue Oak? And is it one of you doing one of you doing the other, or are you both just bouncing around depending on where you needed to be?
It's really ezy. Just throw bigger parties.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Like
That's Jamie's answer for sure.
That's the way I do.
No, I think we're very, very blessed to have built really great teams. We cannot do this on our own. And we are growing Octo as, our projects grow as well. In the last year, we've hired an amazing young lady who's working with us, and really just, I don't even have a great title for her, because she just does everything with us. And that's been a huge support. We have a great management team at the camp. They've, I think, all mostly been there like at least over 2 years at this point. So really in their strides. And Blue Oak as well. We're very blessed at Blue Oak to have a general manager and a head chef come up from New Orleans.
Wow.
So they, have really invested themselves, in this location and making Blue Oak successful in Huntsville as well. So, I think that's a huge piece of, of that. We're always looking for amazing, hospitality-minded people to come join our teams and help us grow as we grow projects, and I think what's appealing is that we don't plan on stopping. We want to continue to grow. So we always want the people who come and grind with us and for us, to be able to grow as well. So creating, great opportunities for our team members as well is something that is really important.
Yeah. And so how much of do you think, working in the restaurant industry and having worked roles that maybe are not the most glamorous roles in the kitchen, washing dishes, whatever it might be, has kind of set you up to now as you're running these and you have these people that, are underneath you, like you are their boss at the end of the day, but you also have been in their shoes. Do you think that helps you kind of not necessarily relate to them, but also kind of know what they're going through in the moment?
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever see myself or Cody not working in a restaurant. We're always working. If we see a plate that needs to be picked up, we're picking up the plate. If we have food that needs to be delivered, we're delivering food. We're hopping behind the bar. We're bar backing. We're cooking. You'll see Cody on the line. Like whatever has to happen, you just make it happen. And that's good ownership, I think, when you're a part of it. And it's just because we care about the guest. When you focus more on them than yourself, then it's real easy to do these things. I'm not going to let somebody not get taken care of just because that's not my role right now.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. That's not hospitality.
Yeah.
Hospitality is taking care of your guest. And as long as you focus in on that and you build a team around you that sees you execute that every day, it becomes culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we care more about than anything is culture that's there to take care of our guest.
Yeah. And the hospitality, I think, is such a unique thing. And I think the way that y'all's approach to hospitality, I did a podcast with Cody talking on MidCity about Unreasonable Hospitality, a book that you recommended in the podcast. Shortly after that, I got it and listened to it in probably 2 days, and it was such a good book. And I think I recommend it to everybody, especially those that aren't in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
Like, I think it almost is more there's a lot of value you can take if you've been in the restaurant industry. You're not in it right now, but you're doing something else. Or you're in the restaurant industry, but I think there's so much you can take as just the average person. Because at the end of the day, we're all in the hospitality business, and that's what they talk about. And I strongly encourage it. And I thought it was so cool during that episode with MidCity is you were talking about, if you encourage your staff to read the book, and you encourage your employees to read the book, and you'll even get the book for them so they can read the book. And I think that is such a unique thing because it is creating that culture. Because at the end of the day, it's, you work and you sleep most of your life. That's what you do. And so you might as well love what you do and have a great bed to sleep in. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, you're creating this culture that people are excited to come to work to.
Sure.
It's not just, it's my job. I have to clock in and clock out. I love what I'm doing, and I love being a part of it.
Yeah. And I think, look, a lot of our team members are young, when you explain the why, like why you're, doing certain things, it clicks for them more, and when you're explaining that it's for the betterment of the guests, why you would walk somebody over near the restroom versus pointing and going, it's over there. When you tell somebody and explain it to them, it clicks, and then it doesn't become a thought for them anymore. They're going to just naturally walk somebody over. So yeah, I love that book. I think it's amazing. It totally can go into any industry whatsoever. So I have a copy in my office that is available for anyone to come and take.
Yeah, it's funny. We started banking here locally, and I found this one little bank, and I won't mention the name, but so amazing. Their hospitality was unbelievable. Like every time I walked in the door, it's like, hey, Mr. Jamie, it's great to see you. Like I was like a rock star every time I walked in. Like, this is amazing. And just recently, about a year ago, I walked in, and sitting on the desk of their leader over there was Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah. I mean, it
makes sense.
It's incredible.
Makes perfect sense.
And like, I think I see it a lot too with, seeing videos or reading stories where, I think I read a story that growing up, this kid's dad made him always, learn their server's name when they came to the table. And he was like, I don't want to call it. I don't want to do this. He didn't understand why he was doing this. And then as he got older and he kind of was ingrained to do that.
Yeah.
The experience they had at any restaurant they went to was, tenfold because they made it their priority to know the server and know who was helping them. And so he like talked about, calling the server by their name, them coming over, and versus other tables that are just yelling and pointing and trying to get their attention, waving, whatever it might be. It's like just by calling them and like saying their name and having them come over, it creates this environment where they feel appreciated.
Yeah, 100%.
Creates a relationship, right? And that's what you want is that relationship. We talk to our bartenders, our staff, like just everybody all the time about that. Recognize, care. There's a great group around here that, part of their philosophy is to either compliment someone or ask a question to every person they encounter. And it's such an introduction to a relationship that people don't think about. You walk up to a table and say, "What can I get you?" That's not a relationship. That's just service.
Yeah.
And we don't do service. We do hospitality.
And I think, especially at Blue Oak, Blue Oak, 50%, of the way you can get food there is counter service. So that's like a big thing that we really talk to the staff about is you have to go a little beyond the norm because we're counter service. So when you do go drop a plate off, see if somebody needs a refill, see if you can bust their plates for them, grab them a fork if they forgot it, bring them sauce, see if they need anything. Even though we're counter service, that doesn't mean that we don't give an amazing hospitable experience. So I think, again, when you're teaching and telling people why you're doing those things, it really helps and creates more of an understanding of it.
Yeah, and I've experienced that exact sort of interaction at Blue Oak where I'd be at a table, sitting maybe often if I'm by myself, I'll sit at the bar, but if I have a group, I'll sit at a table and, they'll come over when they bring the food. Hey, do you need another drink? Do you need another whatever? Hey, do you have and it's like, wow, like I didn't, you don't expect it when you do go to when you go up to the counter to order. But it does create this level of like when people think of barbecue and they want an experience for barbecue, I feel like they think of Blue Oak. Yeah. Because it's amazing barbecue, amazing food, and an amazing experience. And like all three have to work well together for it to be a place that you want to go often.
Yeah.
What most people might not know too is that so you run all the food and all the food and beverage at the camp. You run Blue Oak, but then Octo Hospitality also does catering. Talk a little bit about that element of it and kind of maybe how people that are watching or listening can find out more about maybe y'all catering their event.
Yeah, we have been very blessed to have some great, chefs on board with us. One, from New Orleans, one who's living here now, and, a great young female chef who's really just an incredible person and very creative. We really, got especially popular with doing these raw oyster setups at, a little bit more elevated events. She makes an incredible mignonette and does a great build on these oysters with, everything from caviar to, onions and just
green apple and mignonette.
Yeah, apple mignonette. Amazing. So yeah, we can kind of do it all. We're in theme of being hospitable, we're very flexible. Yeah. So if you want a barbecue wedding and, it's at a farm, amazing. We got that. You want to do a, elevated, cocktail party with hors d'oeuvres and oyster setups and carving stations. We can do that as well.
Wow.
So yeah, again, the team couldn't do it without the team. But we can kind of do it all. And we have done a lot of different setups. So
yeah.
I think it started when we were doing groundbreakings. RCP had this idea of let's do an elevated groundbreaking. So when we were breaking ground on Metronome or, Anthem House, different things that we were doing, he wasn't going to go hire some other catering person. He's like, what can you do?
Yeah.
So we just started doing it and then, kind of gained some traction from that. Other people enjoying it going, I want that. Where do we get that? Who did this? Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of grew from there, but we love it and we will always do it. We have fun with it because it's hospitality. You take care of people. So we got a couple of new ventures coming up in front of us that we're excited about, but I think the elevation of the camp, how it continues to grow, the events that we're doing, Blue Oak, it's fun times right now.
Yeah. And so you alluded to it a little bit, but just the future for Octo Hospitality, the future for maybe other concepts, is that something that people can expect to see maybe this year? Is that something that is, announced this year, hoping to open and operated next year? Like what can people expect?
Yeah, I think we could probably talk about it a little bit. We are opening the restaurant inside the Hotel Indigo that will be opening inside MidCity. We're very fortunate that the owners of the hotel, which are an outside group, but wanted a local restaurateurs to operate and design the concept and make it something that MidCity needed. And so we're very excited about that project. We're partnering up with 2 other, restaurateurs in town who are amazing friends and do incredible work here. So yeah, we definitely will be opening this year.
Wow.
If not, this is going to be a different podcast.
But yeah, we're very excited about it, and I think it'll be something that is new and fresh for the area and going to be a great thing to come to before a show, after a show, and really just a great little cocktail small plate spot.
I think the thing we did not want to be in a restaurant. I mean, on the hotel side of things.
Yeah.
Right. Just never felt great about that. But, New Orleans is a great example of having some incredible restaurant bars in hotels. Not your norm that you would walk into. So I had pretty good feelings about that. And talking to this group after we said no about 5 times, they really emphasized we don't want a hotel restaurant. We want something different.
So you want a restaurant that's in a hotel, not a hotel restaurant.
So I think that gave us the confidence without restriction to go in there and just be creative and have fun. So we're excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is I love to travel. We travel quite a bit, and going to, looking at hotels or whatever it might be. And, if you see a social media page for a restaurant, often, especially the ones that are in hotels, I'll see it as, I don't even recognize that they're in the hotel. I just recognize that they're a really cool restaurant. Their food looks amazing. And then you figure out where they are. And you're like, wait a second, they're in this hotel. It's like, that's the distinction that I think more and more people need to make when they think about a hotel restaurant or a hotel bar. It's having this, though they are a part of the business, the part of the hotel, they can and often are more visited by people that aren't staying at the hotel than they are with people staying there. And I think the Hotel Indigo will be a good example of, people coming to shows at the Orion, staying at doing either a staycation or coming in and staying at the hotel, walking to Blue Oak for brunch on Sunday. It'll be this experience that it's a destination, and it is creating this sort of one-stop shop for everything that you need, and it's incredible just to see the growth that y'all have had. We'll be sure to have everything in the episode notes for information and links to Octo Hospitality, links to Blue Oak, social media links, all of the stuff that we talked about, maybe even a link to the Unreasonable Hospitality book. So if you want to pick it up, you can definitely visit that link. But I appreciate you both being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. We'll see you at Blue Oak soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Beyond Rockets. Don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and on YouTube at Beyond Rockets. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Beyond Rockets to stay up to date with new episodes as they are released. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.